Do you think he can be registered in a second step? I'm not sure. Ah, just wait that Peter is in. I think I have to. Wow. Please. Peter, are you in? Great, thank you. So starting from the objectives of this roundtable, and when I speak about roundtable, it's been the entire duration of the day. So what we want to obtain is to move in order to define the necessary regulatory frameworks to facilitate the adoption of microcredentials. The suggested measures enabling comparability and recognition of microcredentials by different universities in the 3 target countries, and to further capacity building and other supporting mechanisms needed to stimulate the adoption. So these are our main goals. And in this framework, this is the definition of microcredentials that we have to have in mind. So as in the survey, we included both the European Union definition and the UNESCO definition. I don't speak about it more, as of course this morning you, you memorized everything, but we all have an understanding about what we are speaking about, what are the main pillars and basics about the micro-credentials. So specifically focusing on this working group, this is the working group dedicated to policy. What do I mean with policy? There's a general definition. It's a plan of what to do in the micro-credential sector that has to be agreed by the government. Okay, so at higher level. So from your point of view, which elements should be taken into consideration for a general policy on microcredentials? Just put one word and say what's, from your point of view, the main element for answers. I think we are 5 participants. You answered? Yes, of course. Just to open the discussion, just an overview, and hopefully we also type the same, maybe. Who is missing? We can't move if you don't all answer.
Two words. What?
I use 3 words.
I use two words.
5 answers. So it means that we are 6 answers. Okay. Somebody did. Who's missing? 2, 4, 6. We are 7. Okay, now all the answers are in. Needs: authority agency, digital transform, shared credit value, inclusive, enabling law. There is somebody who wants to argue the the keyword. I know that digital transforms comes from Carlos. No, no, I was sure. From you, do we want to open the discussion on this?
As far as I know, in the Philippines, we still need a lot of work when it comes to policy development. And I think it was Sir Peter. I think Sir Peter could give more detail about this. In terms of like the general concept of where we could anchor micro credentials, I think digital transformation. That should be transformation, but the character is limited. But I think there was a proposed bill or a law that relates to digital transformation where we could probably anchor micro credentials.
Thank you. And these problems could be linked to the needs. So once we define the policy, we need to start from the needs at national level in order to define how to proceed and how to develop regulation and development of micro-credentials on the basis of the need. But we also can read about authority agency. So it means the involvement of the authority having the power to establish the system. This is what, who wrote authority agency? Please.
I think we we should set who has the authority, the scope of the authority agency, maybe even a unit that created by authority or government can be okay, but we need to make sure who has the authority to implement because sometimes the policy has to be top down, so we need the authority to set up, to arrange something like that.
Thank you very much. So you mean the authority who is able to give the power to develop micro credentials to certain organizations?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is interesting as you know, at European Union level, we have a very open view on this point. And of course, in the higher education sector, it was seen like with suspects as the need of micro-credential is to open the possibility to facilitate private training providers, as well as vocational education training providers, industrials, to develop these training activities based on the fact that they don't have a strictly academic content, but mainly they give learning outcomes aimed to give skills for working. But of course, this is a sensible issue. Who can do it? And it's interesting to see also shared credit value, as in Europe, we didn't need to explore this sector, as we have the European credit accumulation system. So we simply can measure the workload in the higher education sector by credits. And this was the way, and this is the way that the council recommendation mentioned when of course we need to know the value of the course in terms of credits.
Yeah, that was mine, and maybe I can
Yeah.
explain me.
Yes, please.
Explain a bit more. As you said, we have this big advantage in Europe, so that some agreements were created long ago, and we're still using them. And these agreements, such as having a unified credit system for the value of the academic workload or the students' workload, is very beneficial to recognize courses, degrees, micro credentials, and so on. No? And I think this is not the case entirely here. So every national government may decide what to understand by a student's workload in each case, which makes recognition, the cross recognition of micro credentials also a bit more difficult. But I have to say that in Europe, we solved partially the problem, because when the council recommendation came out, every country could implement this council recommendation in a different way. And actually each country decided, considering the gap or the higher and lower value that the council recommendation determined, each country decided to apply what they wanted. So in the Netherlands, I think it was more, or in Spain it was less, in order to define what exactly is a micro credential. No? So even though we have the basis for the agreement, then the countries, as the educational policy is implemented by the countries, could make their own decisions on what to understand by micro credential. So yeah, that was one of the reflections. So if we have a shared understanding in some of the basic terms that are around the micro credential, we can collaborate better, probably.
Thank you. That's a good point. Inclusive, I suppose it means that in the policy, all the interested parties have to be included. Dennis, does it come from you, this comment? From you, Nara. Nara. No, as I saw his hand, so I don't think it's.
Well, I mean, we have a powerful new platform for learning, and well, we just don't want anybody to be left out. I mean, that's a kind of I mean, passion that I have. I mean, to see how we can expand it to include some others as well. Right?
So the platform could be the useful tool to include all the existing micro-credentials courses, and maybe to define what's in and what's out.
Well, inclusive, I mean, I'm looking at how can, well, even those, because we seem to have Apple A, Apple B. I mean, we got all this accreditation of prior learning, I mean, which allows, I mean, different groups of people with some knowledge of what they know or what they have gathered to be able to enter at different levels. I mean, either at a certificate course or so there are some guidelines like that, but it's still not inclusive enough, because there are those who know how to do something but cannot be measured under the current system.
So they have to be put in the same box in order to be compared, something like this.
What I liked yesterday, I mean, Armin did show that he has a few pipelines.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So can
To
we add
compare.
another pipeline? Or,
Yeah.
I mean, so it's to make up for what you cannot measure, then maybe there is another channel to measure, right?
To compare, at least.
It must be, some way of benchmarking. I mean,
Yeah. And we come back to the quality assurance once again. We begin this enabling law. this is interesting. As for example, in Italy, we could never have a regulation from the European Union, as all the national, as I said this morning, all the national authorities in the education field, they have the freedom to decide at national level their own policies. And we also have the freedom of the universities to define and to recognize or not. So for us, law is something that has to be taken with care. And as of course, the law can be a general law,
Yeah.
but the recognition is a freedom of the universities.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, now reflecting from what I shared this morning about the Philippines situation, that we still don't have that. There are certain laws, but not specific to microcredential. So, it's like it's like a new ball game. No? It's like a new game. So, who establishes the rules of the game? No? And for s- for activities or initiatives such as micro-credentials, which intersects between the educational system, higher education system, in-service, pre-service, etc. Uh, there should be a mechanism wherein all the sectors and stakeholders actually are, in a sense, heard, so that the preference of of society in terms of how to direct this new game, this new technology, is taken into consideration, and appointing a authority, because without the enabling law, there's no one in charge, no, and that makes it more confusing. The other part is the definitions, no. We have several definitions, and one of the things that was pointed out by Dr. Johari this morning is that community organizations are a part of the groups that can actually certify. But how can they do it with less resources, and how can they participate in this particular process if the big players are there? So there should be a mechanism wherein all sectors, particularly in developing countries such as what we have in the ASEAN, can participate in the process wherein their concerns on this particular new game is actually heard and probably represented.
And you simply made a summary of everything we spoke about this. So you are ready for you are the perfect rapporteur, as you mentioned the law, the authoritative agency, the digital transformation, everything it was in what you have just said. Okay. Anyway, I think it's very clear that we are on board and we are in line, and we identified the elements and we agree on the main elements of the policy.
Also need to be set up first in the
Sorry?
policy vision and mission,
Vision and mission, yeah.
because policy is high level.
Yes, that is close to the needs.
Mm.
Yeah, it's probably a more punctual way to define the need. Mission and vision, yes.
Form of badge, or you can have different types of badge. For example, IBM has 4 types of badges. For professional training, right? If you say community as the trainer or the issuer, could they have a different badge? That's just a point to point.
Yes, and anyway, with different tools to be able to communicate one with the other, finally. Going to, now we identified the pillars in our policy, but what are the current challenges in order to foster a policy? Only one. I put one and I changed my mind. You can also put more than one, but in 22 letters. But if you want, you can put one and tell me the second when you take the floor. Two seconds left. Zero. So good. So if you agree, I start with mine, as I want to change my mind, I put quality assurance, but for me, the main current challenge is trust instead of quality assurance. They are strictly related. As of course, I trust in something is if it's quality assured, but as a challenge, I should say trust. And that's why all the policies are built in order to generate trust. Trust between different providers, trust for the employers who receive the certificate, trust in the learner who follow the course, trust in their education to invest in these courses. So that's my point, that convergence issues are strictly related with this, and they can be summarized in the same one. Who puts convergence issues?
Yeah, it's also related to that main thing. But well, my initial thoughts were that there are already existing activities, initiatives. Probably we don't call it micro credential. Probably it's called in another name or coming from a different sector. So how to converge, no, how to put them, and essentially they have to trust each other. They have to agree to come together towards a certain direction or a certain purpose. So I think, yeah.
And also standard is almost the same. Who put standard? Yeah. This.
Uh, maybe the same thought about as with Dennis, because maybe for the existing player of let's say micro credential, they have their own ego. So which of the standard we must follow, and can be, it could be one policy. Maybe this will be a challenge
And it means
keep it
minimum
together.
quality assurance level. These are the standards finally to define. If I want to trust in the instruments, it has to be to guarantee a qualitative standard.
Say Cisco, let's say for a player like Cisco, or the other player for networking technology, maybe they won't, or maybe they don't do not want to make a same protocol.
Yeah.
Just like that,
Yeah.
the ego of the company.
Yeah, that's clear. Align higher education institutions and the industry. This is interesting, as it's also one of the main benefits and interests from the both sectors to cooperate, as it has it's seen as a win-win solution, but it's also seen as a challenge. You please.
At least from my perspective, coming from the Philippines, in terms of micro credentials and the courses that would lead to micro credentials, uh, I think the discussions about convergence and trust would connect to this one. But I think for me, it's because at least in the position of coming from the higher educational institution, um, in my perspective, we don't have the monopoly in terms of providing micro credentials, because I think micro credentials already exist in the country, but we just don't know what's happening on the other side. So I think it's alignment and convergence is really key, and to be able to trust one another such that the challenge becomes a benefit.
Okay. Okay. The chance. Okay. This is what we need to reach the alignment, and this is the main. Okay, difficult. Also, if in the micro credential they have very clear roles, the industry asks for some skills, the university translate it in competencies and in the learning outcomes. And but I agree with you, who takes the leadership in in this role of playing.
And even who offers, because sometimes the industry will not tap the HEI, they could tap other industries that are not necessarily higher educational institutions.
Thank you. That's very interesting. It's true. It's also a challenge. Resistance to change. Yeah. Yeah. From who?
Well, I mean, this morning it was said that the technology goes first and then the regulation comes after. This happens in many fields. AI will be one of them. I think that this also happened in Europe, or in the case of micro credentials. So the need was there, the reality was there. I think the MOOCs boosted a lot the possibilities of learning online from anywhere, from very specific topics that you needed in order to improve your career, improve your skills and knowledge and so on. And then the regulation came after. And at least in Europe, there were big steps on that. But there is a lot of inertia at the high level in order to define the appropriate policies and then to implement them in the different levels. No? And this is what we are seeing now in the implementation of the Council recommendation in the different countries, European countries. No? So I would say there is a lot of resistance first to detect the problem and try to regulate, and it took several years to reach this Council recommendation with the output of several projects, plus the consultation group, plus several iterations. But it took a lot of time, while on the other side, the speed was much faster. Okay, so the reality was there. And for example, Google, Amazon, the big tech providers were already offering their own training courses, their own, let's say, micro courses or series of micro courses to train in-house, but also outside, to try to look for people with the right knowledge. No? And universities, well, I mean, they followed after. Some of them enter in the MOOC world sooner or later, but the industry goes much faster. And at some point, at the top level, it was the need to regulate a bit this credentials, the nano degrees, the professional, many different names, edX, Coursera, many others. Really, it's many different names, and then what's happening? No? So there is some resistance to change at the beginning until you don't have any other way to try to do something.
I think that Yangs is the answer. Because they have much less resistance. Must have. Yes, sure.
Well, I was too slow to type in just now. I mean, I had to. Well, what I can see from here, I mean, the earlier discussion was on, since you said summarize, so let me summarize something, right? So previously we were talking about authority versus recognition, right? I think that was a big concern. And I think the other thing that we are looking at from the need for micro-credentials, it's actually how can you turn capacity into capability, right? So this is how I kind of summarize the previous one, right? And well, to do that, I mean, there's no single method or one way. I mean, it's so subjective, right? So, and it is particular to each individual's well, worldview and things perception, right? So that's how I'm seeing the challenge, why all of us are giving different words to describe the same thing, right? And as I realized, I mean, for this question, well, there was kind of concerns like this: interpretation versus consensus. So I'm just looking at, we're trying to come up with a consensus, but interpretations differ, right? And then when we look at, we want alignment, but there are interoperability issues, right? I mean, not only technological, but also in terms of granularity of learning, right? Scope of, learning modules, and right. And I think, well, if I move one more level, then we are talking about acceptance versus integration, right? I would integrate if I can accept more or less what you're doing. But there's still, because of the interpretation, and so this is how I put some.
Thank you very much. And you are taking notes. This is the
I only
perfect
have
way
one
to
slide
make
of
the
6
report.
words here, if it's okay for you.
It's perfect for me. So going to the last point, you heard this morning, thanks to Dennis, the case study of the Philippines, about the Philippines development plan. We heard about the limits, but we also heard that this could be at policy level one of the main instruments that we checked from your desk research as something that can put the basis for the further implementation. As of course, we also have to think that, as Carlos said, it's a process. It needs time. And of course, we have an overarching law giving just the main needs, objectives, visions, and so on. Then the further implementation has to be taken by further acts and further activities, and generating trust, using something that is defined and decided at policy level. And would you like to spend some more word on this? So
Yes, thank you, Manila. Well, the Philippines Development Plan is a very big document. No? Uh, it's the thrust of the current government, because we just had the election last year, 2022. So they have to declare the development plan for the country for the next 6 years. So it includes everything. So what you have in the development plan for micro-credential is probably
statement.
3 statements, 3 sentences.
Do you remember what I showed today? I showed 10 documents. In each document, you could find one phrase. But this is something that started the process.
Yeah.
So in the European agenda, then in the everywhere the word was mentioned.
Yeah. So it just tells us that it is part of the priority and is already included in the development framework. So that's the minimum that we have on that particular. For that to be operational, there should be, of course, what I mentioned, enabling law. There should be policy on that, and a specific program with budget, with money, so that it can be implemented at the different organization or agency levels. That's the government side. But as we have been discussing, the private side is moving with or without this national policy. Because they have their own bottom lines, no, and whether government subscribe or not is immaterial. For example, but at some point, if government comes in, and they will have to listen now to the players, no, because they have established the games already, the rules of the game, and probably it will be the government now who will have to learn the rules of the game and probably identify what role it can do. So so we're after the Philippine Development Plan was in a sense issued, there were several new proposed laws but that will take time. No? As you know, a law will take probably 2 to 3 years before it can be passed, no, at the parliament, and then implementation, which will probably take another 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So we're looking probably at a minimum of 5 years.
Yeah. But we are in the policy group. We don't care about it. We have two other groups for this. So we put the basis thanks to this document. And this is an example how to start the process at policy level. Just include and mentioning the tool in the programming of the country. So, let's see if there's okay. Now, last requested input from you. It's a brainstorming. What are for you the capacity building and supporting mechanisms needed to support a policy on micro credentials? And in this brainstorming, you can type three main actions. And then we will vote. Yes, yes. Eighty seconds to answer. Thirty seconds. Best practices is mentioned twice. Organize stakeholders, awareness on different stakeholders. So stakeholders is mentioned twice. Wow, we must go to the elections. Find best practice. Budget was mine. I copied from the previous one as I thought, what's the main supporting mechanism? Money. Who were the two about stakeholders?
Well, actually, I wanted to add several of them, so I just used the first one, clicked, and it went off. And so I will talk about maybe all of them. So definitely we need more awareness, and this is part of the task of this project, the microcasa. And as you said, the term micro credentials started in one document in one line, then appeared again in another document, another, and this becomes something to pay attention to. So the more the topic is discussed, the more the events that are related, the more awareness will be created in the region. And we can see that the advances in the countries in Southeast Asia are different. So Malaysia goes a bit faster and some others go a bit behind. But I mean, if there are shared activities, also as we are doing here, best practices can be shared. And something else that I wanted to point it out is, as I come from the IT, technology is important, and something that the European Union, I think, did very well, apart from defining the policies, is having a specific project for the development of the appropriate technologies that could support these ideas. Because, I mean, if you just define the policy and there is nothing to back it up, then well, everybody gets confused. I don't know what to do, which technology, and everybody ends up using a different technology that is not compatible, no standard. Yeah. So at least the European Union decided to use the European Digital Credentials for Infrastructure as one approach, blockchain service infrastructure EPSI as another approach, and then providing some kind of technology that the universities could or could not, but at least you have something that if you create some agreements and you decide that everybody's going to use this, will facilitate the recognition. That's another step. So that was the other topic that I wanted to point it out here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. What was the other one about stakeholders? You put stakeholders and good practice.
Yeah,
We
I have another one, having
sorry.
champions. Scroll down.
Champions.
Champions, yeah. Carlos is the champion. Yeah, because for policy to be able to prosper or to move from one stage to the next, there should be interest groups that indicate that will make themselves heard. No, that this is something that needs to be addressed by policy makers, but they have to, in a sense, be organized. No, they have to move along one direction. Otherwise, they won't have any significant voice. The other thing is, of course, it's for policy to recognize a certain issue. Usually, our experience shows that if there's already existing good practices that shows promise, then it helps policymakers to say yes, rather than a lot of words but nothing concrete to show what it can promise. And of course, you need people or decision makers who understand and will actually help other decision makers decide towards a certain policy. So you need we need to identify people, organizations, entities who can actually articulate the direction louder, perhaps, no, so that it can be heard in all sectors.
So we could sum up, we need a dialogue starting from the existing with an open view and a very comprehensive view of the stakeholders and their engagement from the very beginning. And this could be the way to generate trust. As it was in the main policies, if we ensure this to involve all the stakeholders, starting from the existing, the best practice and so on, we of course generate trust. But there is another contribution about best practices. Yes, please.
Just to add to, I think we're kind of synced, especially coming from the same country. At least from my perspective, I do recognize the importance of the interest group, especially with the nature of what we're doing, because at least as far in my appreciation of policies and legislations, at least in the Philippines, you have those policies that would involve some life death situation, and there are those that would need some sort of push from down below so that it could happen. And for that to happen, the interest group is important. Plus, a certain reason why the interest group is pushing for this specific activity that usually allows it to move forward.
Very clear. Thank you. Last capacity building action, communication, transparency, and digital literacy.
I just think because the time was counting down. No,
Please hide it.
I think we need to how we need to assimilate the idea about the policy. So communication is important. Yeah, the mechanism.
Communication is stakeholders.
Yeah. With the stakeholders.
Yeah.
And transparency about the mechanism.
Communication, dialogue, good practices.
Yeah.
It's all
Even in Philippines, maybe it needs 4 years, 5 years. Yeah, takes time, and that's why sometimes policy takes maybe 25 years. And digital literacy, maybe same with Carlos. Let's say technology literacy. Yeah, because technology we need the tools to support the system mechanism and so on.
Well, the problem, as Carlos said, is that we need time to generate the process and so on. But at the same time, there is another fast line
Yeah. Toll line. Yeah.
crossing on us. And it's really hard to combine the two speeds. Mm.
That's it.
Thank you very much. I think that the brainstorming was very interesting and
At the base layer, I mean, OSI 7-layer model, sorry, right? There's infrastructure building, right? Looking at, technological, connectedness as an enabler, right? So that's the enabler layer. And then beyond that, you want to provide resources, including funding, development projects, a mechanism for, engaging more people. So bringing different parties together, stakeholders, right? And then, I think it leads to facilitating engagement and dialogues towards agreement and trust, right? And beyond that, networking for knowledge exchange, awareness and sharing, and finally, innovation and talent pooling and capacity building, right? So this comes with best practices, champions, grooming, etc. So it seems, I mean, this is what I gather from.
Do you want to be our president? We are your ministries.
No, I'm good at converging and taking. I'll pass you the slides. That's as much as I can do.
Thank you, Nara. Finally, vote. Start voting Now you will be requested to vote the different options. And you only have 20 seconds. No, I think you can vote for all of them. No, it's not working for me. Phone is off, I'm sorry. So best practice was voted once. Communication, transparency, and digital literacy was voted one. Now the timeline was too short, too short. So we had no time. Me neither. I could vote. 3 organized stakeholders received 3 votes and 3 votes for awareness on different stakeholders. And let's see. Thank you very much. Thank you. Look at here. Steven. Daddy. And Carlo. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Not so polite. Part of the policy group of the politicians. Politicians, please. Politicians. Politicians, please. Are we there? No, Dennis is no more there.
you are a specialist in the eyes technology. And
Sir Peter.
Peter, are you there?
Yeah, I'm listening. Just a listener today.
Ah, okay. I wanted
Right.
to hear your point of view.
Uh, I think I'm good. I will just agree with Jacob.
Which minister do you want? Education, of course, higher education.
So I'm trying to be a good listener.
Thanks to you that you could be connected, and see you soon in Penang.
Yeah, I will do a lot of talking in Penang. You tell me to shut up.
Promise. You are recorded.
Okay.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Ciao, Peter. Like a boat. You are launching the boat from here to there. Thank you.